Okay, so welcome everybody. So I'm Joan Colon and I'm the coordinator of the Follow project, and I will be moderating this second session and the round table discussion. So without further delay, let's start with the session, which is entitled Digital Tools and Methodologies to Measure Food Loss. We have five hopefully very interesting presentations. I would like to ask to all the speakers to try to keep their presentations under the time limit. And without further ado, let's start with our first speaker and the keynote of the session. The first speaker will be Valeria De Laurentiis, who is a project officer at the Joint Research Centre of the European Commission, and her research works include the environmental sustainability of food consumption and production, life cycle assessment, land footprint modeling, and food waste quantification and prevention. She has a PhD from the University of Birmingham on the environmental sustainability of the food school catering sector. Thank you very much, Valeria, and for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Joan. So I hope you can all see my screen. Okay, I will then start with my presentation. Thanks a lot for the introduction and thanks a lot for the invite. I would like to start by mentioning what the Joint Research Centre is. This is the research body of the European Commission, and it provides independent, evidence-based knowledge and science in support to EU policies. We're more than 2,000 researchers, and we support policies across all domains, from the economy, finance to the environment. And I'm working in the Land Resource and Supply Chain Assessment Unit, focusing on environmental sustainability analysis. The aim of my presentation today is to give an overview of the EU legislative framework on food waste measurement, dive into the direct measurement methods that member states can use to collect data on food waste quantities, mention what the reported food waste quantities are being used for, and to present you the food waste model that we have been developing over the last years at the Joint Research Centre. The amendment to the Waste Framework Directive, published in 2018 to monitor the generation of food waste and ask member states to monitor the generation of food waste and to take measures to limit it. 1 year later, the Commission Delegated Decision 1597 was released, setting a common methodology and minimum quality requirements for the uniform measurement of the levels of food waste. This was accompanied by an implementing decision that provided the format for data reporting and for the submission of a quality check report. Article 2 of the delegated decision stated that member states should measure food waste quantities once every 4 years using in-depth methods, as set out in Annex 3, where a number of direct measurement methods are listed. While in the years in between, member states are allowed to project the quantities obtained through in-depth methods based on trends in other indicators, such as total waste quantities or socioeconomic indicators. So, for instance, agricultural production levels, turnover of food products, employment in the food service sector or population, and so on. In Annex 3, a range of in-depth measurement methods are suggested, depending on the stage of the supply chain. For instance, direct measurement of food waste and waste composition analysis are suggested for all stages of the food supply chain, while counting and scanning, a less precise but at the same time less resource-intensive method, is suggested only for the retail and food service sectors. I would like now to show you a video that introduces the different direct measurement methods that can be used to measure food waste at the consumption stage, that we have produced in the context of a project focused on reducing food waste at consumer level that has just been concluded. And this is the European Consumer Food Waste Forum. So,
how can you measure food waste? Food waste is a complex issue, and it has a significant impact on our environment, society, and economy. When it comes to food waste, the saying, "what gets measured gets managed," is particularly relevant. We must measure food waste not only in restaurants, cafeterias, and school canteens, but also in households to fully grasp the problem and take action. But first, what is food waste? Food waste encompasses all the food that you discard, whether it's thrown out in the bin, composted, or disposed through the drain or in the toilet. It includes both edible and inedible parts of food, such as vegetable peels, bones, or coffee grounds. If you monitor food waste over a period of time, you can identify the hotspots, when and where most food waste occurs, and which types of food are most wasted. This information can help you determine the economic and environmental impacts of food waste and allow you to assess the effectiveness of your actions put in place to reduce it. To understand if your action is effective, you need to measure food waste quantities before and after you implement it and consider the resources involved. It is worth monitoring food waste levels over a longer period to see if you need to adjust the action in the long run. There are many direct and indirect methods to measure food waste. You can choose the method that suits you best or combine several methods. How can you use direct methods to measure food waste? One of the most widely used method is direct weighing. You simply need a scale to weigh the waste. This method is suitable for monitoring food waste in various settings, such as households and restaurants or canteens, and it is easy to implement. Direct weighing is often combined with another method, food waste diaries. Diaries can be used to record food waste levels, either through weighing or visual observation of food waste quantities. A benefit of this method is that you can keep track of waste disposed of through the bin, drains or compost, and you can also note the types of food that you throw away. Surveys are another accessible method to collect information on food waste from multiple sites. Instead of only focusing on food waste quantities and types of food, they can also gather data on behavioral aspects, such as reasons for discarding food. Be aware that the results of surveys and diaries might lead to self-reporting bias, as people tend to underestimate their food waste. Therefore, it is a good idea to complement them with other methods such as direct weighing. A more complex method is waste compositional analysis. It includes physically sorting, weighing, and categorizing food waste to understand types of food and quantities discarded. While it is an accurate measuring method, it requires significant resources and does not capture waste disposed of through the drains or toilets. It is primarily used to monitor waste generation at national or city levels by analyzing a representative sample of the population. Finally, through the observation and photo registration method, you can count the bins or use a scoring system to estimate the total food waste. Although less precise, these methods can be effectively utilized in canteens where resources are limited, for example, to monitor plate waste. With recent advancements in technology, numerous companies have created apps and other digital tools to help measure food waste. For instance, cutting-edge solutions using AI-powered softwares connected to digital scales help identify types and quantities of wasted food. By monitoring food waste, you contribute to a sustainable future. Keep the momentum going. Visit our webpage for additional tutorials and online tools to help prevent consumer food waste.
Okay, so as a result of the first food waste monitoring exercise, member states have reported to Eurostat food waste quantities for each stage of the supply chain, referring to years 2020 and 2021. And here we can see a breakdown of the quantities by stage of the food supply chain, where we can see, as mentioned earlier, that more than half occurs at the household stage. The quantities reported by member states for year 2020 allowed to set a baseline of food waste generation in the EU. And based on these quantities, the Commission performed an impact assessment of a legislative proposal setting legally binding food waste reduction targets for member states to be met by 2030 against a 2020 baseline. In the legislative proposal adopted by the Commission last July, The following targets were set: to reduce food waste by 10% at the processing and manufacturing stage and by 30% at the retail and consumption stages. And it will now go under negotiation in Parliament and Council. In these initial stages of data reporting, it proved very useful to have a complementary approach to estimate food waste quantities that was derived through modeling. And this allowed us to identify potential errors in the data reported and also to complement the information reported when necessary. So to this end, we have developed a model to estimate food waste generation based on material flow analysis. And this was done. The added value of this model is that it provides an independent estimation of the food waste quantities obtained by adopting a consistent approach across member states. So, for instance, in terms of the definition of food waste adopted, the distinction between food waste and byproducts, and also the system boundaries considered. Its outputs can be used to compare and cross-check the amounts reported by member states, and also to assess the data quality in the estimation of food waste for the years where direct measurements are not available, so where food waste is estimated based on socioeconomic indicators. And lastly, it can complement the information reported by the member states by adding the granularity on the composition of food waste generated. And this was very useful in the estimation of the embodied environmental impacts of food waste that we performed in the context of the impact assessment of the legislative proposal. The model uses the definition of food waste of EU legislation, therefore excluding unharvested crops, and also the quantity used as animal feed or for other byproducts, and includes both edible and inedible components of food waste, but also provides a distinction between the two. Here we can see a visualization of how the model works by developing a material flow analysis of the entire food system from the harvesting of crops up to the amounts eaten by humans. In this way, it estimates the flows of food waste and byproducts generated at each stage. In addition, our model also estimates food losses generated at primary production. The input data used by the model are production and trade statistics of crops and livestock products, and production and trade statistics of manufactured food, and also sales data. These are combined with coefficients taken from the scientific and technical literature expressing the share of an input flow that is wasted at a given stage of the supply chain. These coefficients are product-specific and as much as possible country-specific. At the manufacturing stage, whenever possible, data were collected directly from trade associations to model more accurately the generation of waste and byproducts. An additional output of the model are the eaten amounts. These are compared with food consumption surveys to perform a reality check of the outputs of the model. We are constantly working on improving the model by keeping an eye open for new data and publications that could be used to refine and update the waste coefficients. In order to be integrated in the model, new studies would need to provide any of the following information: the percentage of the harvested crop that is wasted at primary production in the post-harvesting stage, or the percentage of the crop ready for harvest that is left on field, the percentage of the input raw material that is wasted at the manufacturing stage, and the percentage of the input raw material that is instead used as a byproduct, the percentage of the product entering the distribution stage that is wasted, or the percentage of a product purchased, either by food services or by households, that is wasted. It is possible to navigate the results of the model through these interactive dashboards, providing for each year the total food waste estimated for each country and how this is distributed across stages of the supply chain and across product groups, as you can see in the plot on the right. And here there is an overview of the contribution of product groups to the food waste generated across the EU as a whole. But how do the estimated amounts compare with the reported data? Here you can see a comparison at EU level that I borrowed from Agora Agriculture's study about the contribution of the land use sectors to a climate neutral EU that will be published this summer. In this case, we can see that for certain stages of the supply chain, such as household consumption, retail and distribution, and processing, the estimates are very close, while at primary production, the amount we estimated with our model is between 2 and 3 times higher than the reported amount. If the same comparison is performed for each individual member state, it is possible to see that although in many cases the two quantities are within the same range, which you can see with a yellow arrow, there are cases where the modeled amount is much larger than the reported amount, marked with a green arrow, and vice versa. Based on this, we can see that the model is not systematically overestimating or underestimating reality. And now I would like to wrap up, leaving you with some final messages. First of all, when choosing between different methods, it is important to keep in mind that there is no perfect method, and the choice should be carefully tailored to the context. And also to remember that all methods have pros and cons, and whenever possible, it is good to use more than one to reduce the risk of bias. Secondly, thinking about member states that have to provide robust estimates at national level, any of these methods can only be used on a sample of the population. Therefore, it is important to have a rigorous sampling and upscaling approach to be sure that no biases are introduced at this step. As briefly mentioned in the video that I showed you earlier, and as I think we will be hearing more about in the next presentations, there are a number of new and promising technologies that can make the data collection more granular and cost-effective. So it is really important to embrace them and capture their full potential. And finally, I hope I have convinced you of the importance of having an independent model for estimating food waste generation to benchmark and complement the quantities reported. Our expectation is that in the years to come, the amounts reported will become more accurate, and any possible inconsistencies between countries will flatten out. And at the same time, we will keep working on refining our model. So we expect that the two estimates will converge more in the future. And with this, I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Okay, thank you very much, Valeria, for this very interesting presentation. I'm sure that there will be quite a lot of questions. And thank you very much for sticking to the time. So now let's move to the second presentation that will be delivered by Ainhoa Alonso, who is the coordinator of the Food RAS project that just finished recently. So Ainhoa, thank you very much for being here, and the floor is yours.
Hello, good morning. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, but at least I'm hearing you in quite a low volume. I don't know if you can increase a little bit the volume of your mic. If not, it's fine. But if you can.
Can you hear me now better?
Yes, better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this webinar. I will present the Food RAS suite, the integral solution for food loss and waste prevention developed under the umbrella of the Food RAS project. The overall objective of Food RAS is to enhance the resilience and the sustainability of our regional and local food systems by the deployment and the demonstration of 12 eco-innovative solutions, technological and not technological solutions, to promote the sustainability and the cooperation for prevention, reutilization, recovery, and valorization, with special attention on perishable food products. To this end, circular food data management platform that we have called Food RAS Suite and developed under the or using the firmware and blockchain components has been developed to provide stakeholders with tangible criteria and data-driven decision-making tools to enhance the effectiveness of the deployed strategies. So with this tool, we have been able to identify the main drivers behind the food loss and waste problem, We have detected and quantified the origins of the food loss and waste generation patterns. We have co-created and deployed a set of eco-innovative solutions in 3 pilot sites in Europe, with the ultimate objective to create resilient local food systems to prevent food loss and waste and improve their management according to the waste hierarchy. FLW's project has been governed by a digitalization process thanks to the development of a set of information and communication technologies covering different problems along the whole value chain, from primary production till households. So we have developed different solutions, technological and not technological, as fiscal instruments or a certification process, using the value of the data and the digitalization process under the FLW suite. So the FLW suite is an integral solution covering different problems along the whole value chain, and it is a platform to collect and manage food loss and waste related data from an standardized point of view. With this tool, we have been able to quantify and monitor the problem of food loss and waste according to the European regulations explained before by Valeria. We have been able to identify the root causes behind the problem. We have planned and monitor the impact of a set of food loss and waste reduction initiatives developed along the whole project. And we have identified best practices from these actions to facilitate the replication and transferability to another regions. This is the FLW suite. You can access to the tool using this QR code. It is a set of 12 eco-innovative ICT solutions. The first set of solutions allow us to quantify and monitor the food loss and waste generation patterns, as well as the impact of the prevention actions carried out. We have a set of 3 solutions, one to monitor the problem in the food supply chain, another tool to monitor food waste generation at HoReCa sector and in households, and a third solution to extract knowledge from the urban characterizations at municipal level. In addition, we have developed and integrated into the tools a sustainability index to make or to be able to make a diagnosis in terms of food loss and waste generation, and to identify potential solutions and initiatives to prevent a move up in the waste hierarchy, improving the waste management of the food waste. We have included also some recommendations according to the causes identified by the users, and thanks to these 3 tools, we are able to integrate all this information to calculate specific KPIs, key performance indicators, that have been codified in the first stage of the project by experts and practitioners to assess the problem from an analytical and integral perspective. To create awareness and education along the whole value chain, we have also developed a learning platform composed of 8 modules and covering the problem in all the stages of the supply chain. You can access also using this QR code. This is open and it has been translated into 5 languages. To facilitate the process of planning and to monitor the impact of the food loss and waste prevention actions, we have also developed a specific tool, the social action module, to register all the information related to the prevention actions, with the final objective to identify the best practices and facilitate the replication in other regions in Europe. As one of the solutions covering the whole value chain, we have highlighted the certification tool. First, an environmental management system, a label for the certification of the effective implementation of food loss and waste prevention actions has been defined, and an ICT tool to assist the certification process to guarantee the traceability and the transparency of the data has been also developed using the blockchain components. Regarding the solutions to prevent food waste at origin, we have developed 3 solutions: the stock optimization tool, product demand forecasting tool, and the cold chain traceability tool, together with a quality prediction model to forecast the life of the product once cold chain brokerage is produced. At municipal level, we have also developed a pay-as-you-throw system, considering not only or trying to incentivize not only the waste separation, especially bio-waste, but also to incentivize the implementation of food loss and waste prevention initiatives. To this end, we have also developed an ICT tool based on blockchain to guarantee the transparency and the confidentiality of data, of the information about the implementation of these activities, thanks to the implementation of smart contracts using this blockchain network. Regarding product traceability, we have developed a QR code-based system to visualize by citizenship and public and general public to visualize the information related to food and waste prevention initiatives carried out in the 3 pilots. Thanks to the use of these QR codes, you can see the prevention initiatives carried out, together with information about the impact of these actions concerning the climate change impact, the reduction in terms of climate change, and also in terms of water footprint. At the end, all this information has been managed, collected, and exploited also to calculate a set of KPIs that, as I mentioned before, they have been defined or co-created at the beginning of the project to measure the impact of the food loss and waste prevention actions in terms of technical, environmental, economical, and social criteria. All this information is public, can be consulted thanks to a public dashboard that integrate and show all this information properly anonymized. With this dashboard, we are able to make a proper diagnosis about food loss and waste generation patterns, and also to make benchmarking, comparing or evaluate the impact of different actions, stages, or even comparing food supply chains or products or regions. And this is open data. So with FLW suite, during the last 4 years, we have been able to demonstrate the value of the data, and in particular the digitalization process. First, to extract knowledge about the food loss and waste problem. Secondly, to implement cooperative solutions based on the share of information among the different stakeholders. And finally, providing transparency about the problem for the whole value chain, including citizens and public and general public. And this is all from our side, that we have just finished the project last month.
Okay, thank you very much, Ainhoa, also for finishing the project. It's always a great achievement. So thank you very much for the presentation. Now let's move to our next speaker, who is Andra Tanasi. She's currently serving as Head of Strategy and Green and Digital and Future Competences Program Manager at the Transylvania IT Cluster. as well as expert trainer and strategist on digital transformation and education. Andra works on strategic program design, capacity building, policy making, and organizational development from mainly the perspective of sustainability, collaborative leadership, and digital innovation. Andra coordinates several projects at the green and digital intersection, and today is here presenting the Zero Waste project. So, Andra, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I will now also put some pictures regarding the Zero project. Hopefully you can see them. And thank you very much for the invite. And also I want to address thanks for the inspiring sessions before this one, because indeed they said, as our previous speaker said, that like Valeria, that we are addressing one of the challenges. So I'm here to tell you about the experience of one of the living labs in the Zero project, which is a project aiming at bringing systemic innovations towards a zero food waste supply chain. And as you mentioned, I'm Andra from Transylvania IT and the Digital Innovation Hub in Transylvania. A few words about us. We are an ICT cluster based in Cluj, in the northwest region of Romania. We have more than 160 member companies, most being SMEs, but also large companies, together being over 6,500 employees and having quite a significant combined income. Cluj is one of the centers of technology, not only of the region, but also of Europe. And as an ICT cluster, we provide networking opportunities, support to find investment for member companies, but our main role is as a catalyst for digital and also green transformation in the region. So in this context, in the context of innovative projects, we are also involved in the Zero project. I will skip the video because I will tell you more about the project, but just know that if you want to read more about our seal, it's there. You heard about Zero a little bit earlier. It's based on the needs and the problems that you have heard about. A big proportion of the food produced in the EU goes to waste, and this happens along the supply chain. We have also the big issue of food poverty. So not only that we waste food, but also there are people who cannot really afford quality food. So our project directly addresses these challenges, and how we do that is throughout four years with 46 partners from 17 countries, having projects in the framework of systemic innovation living labs. So living labs are those types of projects, that methodology that tests innovative solutions in real-life contexts. And as you can see here, in the Zero project, we have a number of systemic innovation living labs focusing on different solutions, from smart packaging, where labels detect the deterioration of products so that they can be better used in retail contexts, to greenhouse solutions. We have living labs focusing on food banks. We have a living lab looking at mobile food valorization as a service, and in this we also play our role in implementing along the food supply chain, this food loss and waste monitoring and assessment solution. So we are Systemic Innovation Living Lab 1, and we are focusing together with our partners both in Romania and Slovenia. So we are one living lab, but actually working in 2 geographical locations. We are focusing on addressing these challenges and creating an ICT solution. So the challenges, again, were mentioned also earlier, but the main problem is that waste is happening at all stages of the food supply chain: pre-harvest, post-harvest, processing, retail, consumption. That this waste is actually quite significant. We see here number 68 kilograms of food in Romania, in Slovenia, and 130 kilograms on average in Slovenia. But more so, the data is either missing or fragmented. I don't know if you noticed in Valeria's presentation earlier, when there was the correlation between estimates and data reported, actually one line where Romania was completely missing, and I'm actually curious to see why. So data is missing and fragmented, and more so, based on data, there is a lack of modeling capabilities based on data from food actors and third-party sources. There is also quite little awareness and willingness to supply data. And this is another question, you know, that we have perhaps for our other colleagues, because we come with the tech solutions, but the willingness and the to put in data, significant amounts of data, is challenging. And there are different definitions for the data. So what we do is this open data-driven platform for capturing and assessing food loss waste data throughout the supply chain, and also providing analytics to address the requirements of the policies that we have heard about. So the delegated decision, the SG indicator. We have also a systemic approach to collecting data, meaning that we have 2 types of data inputs: manual and also automated from accounting data. And what we hope to bring is a better insight into where the problems arise, and also allow interventions at critical stages. This image presents a big architecture model from which we started from for our platform. So we want to include, as we said, throughout the food supply chain, farmers, processors, distributors, retailers, everybody. It can be used and applied and plugged in a number of applications. IoT based on identifying a loss, waiting for the waste, and so on. And what we created is this architecture. Perhaps this is a little bit technical, but what it describes are the different possible beneficiaries of the data, and the fact that through technologies that we see here, Ruby on Rails, and PostgreSQL, and so on, we gather data either on a manual basis based on user accounts in our platform, or in an automated way. And this was the part designed by our Slovenian colleagues. And this data goes into a common pool of data that respects all the regulations and mentioned earlier, so the categories of food loss and waste. More so, what we're hoping from this platform is to have a stronger awareness at the individual stakeholder level, but also improved policy, better and coherent policies and needs-based solutions. So from our platform, which shows like this data on the different quantities, we want to go also to recommender systems and matchmaking, so that and other types of solutions, calculators of impact, so that we have even a more incentive to attract users in our platform. The other last bit that I wanted to share with you is that in the future, we are looking into feeding, and this data is fed into data space, and this is a very important concept because we talk about data being the new gold, but also data spaces are probably going to be the future societies that we will be living in. So what we work in our Systemic Innovation Living Lab is towards a system that can enable data sharing and exchange within this technology of data spaces, which is one of the state-of-the-art technologies that are to be applied. I want to stop here because I think also we are there with the time, but basically I'm very happy to share more and to answer questions and to see how we can connect and what we can learn from all the initiatives that we bring. And our biggest challenge is to narrow this data gap, the fragmented data gap, and to have more data, because we believe, and we found so far in our project, that if there is an awareness of the data, so how much we're wasting, plus the possible impact of this data, plus the matching of our patterns of waste with potential solutions, if this awareness exists, then the reduction and the incentive and the ethical system and the technical solutions are there to enable the reduction of food loss and waste. So thank you so much, both on our behalf from Transylvania IT, but also our colleagues as I sit in Slovenia.
Thank you very much, Andra, for the nice presentation. Okay, so now let's move to the next speaker. The next speaker will be Wouter Maes. Wouter is a tenure-track professor in vegetation monitoring with UAB and colleagues the UGent UAB Research Center. Wouter has a background in forest ecology and plant physiology, and he's applying his UAB remote sensing expertise for precision agriculture applications and ecological applications. Today, Wouter is here representing Follow project. So, Wouter, thank you very much for being here, and then the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joan. I'm just going to share my screen first. And I hope this now works. Okay, you can see the screen, right? So indeed, I'm going to...
Yes, so I'm seeing you.
You're seeing me?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Share.
Now I'm seeing a Word file. Now the presentation.
There we go. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, so today I'm going to introduce briefly some of the technological advancements within the Follow project. There are a lot of other ways we are measuring food loss. So here we are just exploring a few technological advancements to do so. So a very brief introduction probably not needed. Why do we need to measure food loss? We've been hearing about that the whole morning already. So I think you are aware. We want to create awareness. We want to measure. We want to do our policy planning. So there's a lot of good reasons why we want to measure food loss. But today, most of our methods are classical, and we know that they are time intensive. So consuming time, which also means that they are quite costly, and also they're covering a relatively limited scope and scale. So we want to maybe use technology to do a better job or to complement this measurement. So what we are proposing in the food today is part of the way we are defining food loss and food waste in the FLW project. So first of all, food waste is not included in the FLW project. There we're looking particularly at food losses. So how do we define food losses? That's basically all the pre-harvest and harvest losses. So that means the food that is ready in the field that gets lost somehow through the harvest, then through some damage pre-harvest, or because it's not been harvested at all. So the food loss here is a food loss during the pre-harvest and harvest period. We don't include necessarily the production losses. So that's this all food that could have been produced with, the absence of stress or with better management systems. This is not included. But sometimes the distinction between pre-harvest losses and production losses is not so clear. So this is always a bit, this always causes some uncertainty and some difficulties also to compare different measurements. Just to show this a bit further, what do we include with food losses? So these are basically if you have your crop is growing and you have your crop is ready to be harvested, you can say that's the attained yield. Then we actually start measuring in the project, we're measuring the pre-harvest losses and the harvest losses. That's included. Whereas the production losses as such are also sometimes included in FLW, in the technological developments, although they are not exactly part of the food losses. So the technologies I'm presenting today, we have several technologies and they're quite diverse, you will see. So I'll present the four most important ones or the four main categories today. There's a few that I can't present due to lack of time. But first we'll start with high resolution and AI. So what is the idea there? That we're looking at primary sector. So we were looking at, for instance, crops growing in the field. We can go there with our drone or with technologies such as the cameras on tractor-based systems, and we can directly see how much is growing, how much is the yield. And if we repeat that afterwards, we can go back after the harvest and we can see how much is left. Furthermore, when we go to the field, we can also see how much is damaged. So we want to develop this methodology and then create deep learning and AI methods to assess our food loss. So basically, it's data collection through UAVs or tractor-based systems. Then have a lot of data pre-processing. So you really need to have systems automatically recognizing what is food and what is the quality of the food. And then you need to put that in an object detection model and get some results. This is an example of a partner from France, the Olympics, that is measuring cauliflower. And you can see here, this high resolution data can give you normal. So these are good for production. These are lost for production. So we can estimate this. Then you can go just before harvest and return after harvest. From that, we can estimate the food losses as such. Another example of what we're doing there, this is from Ghent University, so our research. There we're applying the same technology, but this time in orchards, for instance, in apples. We can fly with a drone through the orchards, but there it is less straightforward than in, for instance, the cauliflower, because those apples are hard to see. You get shadows on the apples, there's some occlusion, the background is quite different. So there it's a bit harder. So what we're looking at is basically the same technology. We're looking with a drone, very high resolution data, but we're now first investigating also okay, what are the ideal viewing angles that we're looking at? And how much of the apples can we see this way? And how much are we missing because of this occlusion? So these are the questions we're on top of just trying to measure food and food loss. We're trying to answer. These are just a few examples of what you can get from these high resolution data. This is from typically one single image. If you zoom in, you can see where the apples are, and you see here that there's scab disease on the apple on the left side image. These would be recognized automatically as diseased, whereas on the right you can see that these are healthy apples, but they are occluded. But these should be recognized as apples. So this is one of the technologies, the most straightforward technologies that immediately estimates food losses in the field. Another approach, which is much less direct, goes through crop modeling. And this is to implement things at a larger scale. Now, this in fact does not really measure food loss, but rather production losses. So what's the idea here? That based on satellite and drone data that are captured regularly, this time not with high resolution RGB cameras, but with multispectral cameras, we can assess the growth and how well a crop is growing. And if there's any issues, for instance, like drought stress or pests, that could actually lead to production losses. So we include this with weather data and soil data, and with some available crop data. And we combine all that in crop growth models. In this case, for instance, APSIM and DSAT. And we do this for, in total, 5 crops, of which we have most corn, we have potato, we have sunflower, etc. So we also, in the project, we take reference measurements to see whether actually this crop growth model and our satellite or drone data estimates the right crop parameters. So basically this crop model will sort of predict the size of the crop, the greenness, so the amount of chlorophyll in the crop, the leaf area in the crop. So we take reference measurements to see whether actually our models are working fine and whether our drone and satellite remote sensing data are able to see this correctly. And then finally, these models can give you both the attainable and the attained yield. The attainable yield you can see as, okay, we can run the model with the current measurements of the weather conditions, but without including, for instance, drought stress or any diseases or anything like that. In this case, your model will give you the maximally potential yield. So that could be the attained yield. On the other hand, we also feed it the actual data, such as the actual drone data. So these are often where there's a disturbance in the crop growth. And this gives you the attained yield. So the difference between those can be seen as a food production loss. And this is a method that we hope we can apply at a larger scale relatively easily. Another technology that we are developing, and I was happy to see that on the food trust they're also developing this, or they actually have developed this. That's the blockchain method. So basically, I think the idea behind this is that, well, as a customer, you would like to see immediately, you would like to be able to scan immediately if there's any food loss related to your product. And a blockchain method could be the ideal tool for that, because anything that comes in as basic input cannot be changed anymore. So it's secure, so this method already, of course, exists. But here we also would like to apply it in particularly for food losses, so for the primary production chain. So what we do, we try to work with a complete and reliable tracking of food, and we try to develop a public blockchain method. In this case, we have one application where we are applying this for mussels. And the architecture has already been built, and the data have been measured. So they have been manual measurements, but also measurements on just the size and the weight of the mussel growing, automated measurements that can also help us to predict food loss. So I'm just going to speed up my last slide. So the last technology that we are covering is social networks. Here, what we've seen, why are we doing this? Because we've seen that there's an inaccurate forecast of the food demand. So we see that on times there's lower demand, and then we risk of having a surplus of food, and this, of course, is food waste. So to cover that, our approach is to look at social media. Can we predict food consumption based on a lot of things, including social networks? So of course, we know that the demand and supply is sort of cyclic, but on top of that, can social media help to predict this better? And here the scope is to work on Spain for a period of 5 years for a number of products such as pasta, tomato, olive oil, pork, meat, and egg. So quite a range of commodities there. What are they? This is developed by Kirche, one of the project partners. They're doing some data acquisition through Google and through X. They're analyzing this, first of all, of course, doing general preparation, coupling this to a sentiment analysis, so putting the raw data into something that we can start understanding, or that the computer can start understanding. And then there will be some data modeling to see whether actually the actual consumption can be predicted with those social media. So we're combining actual consumption data with those social network data. And that was my last slide. So we have a lot of information about all these technologies on our website. So please feel free to have a look there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wouter, for this nice presentation of the technologies. We are perfectly right on time for the last speaker. So the last speaker will be Dejan Gradisar. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing well your name. He's currently working as a researcher at the Department of System and Control at the IPSE Stefan Institute, and serves as an assistant at the Faculty of Electrical Engineering of the University of Ljubljana. His current research interests include production optimization, modeling, and simulation, and he has participated in several national and European projects, and is also coordinating one. He's here today presenting the WASTELESS project. So thank you very much for being here, and the floor is yours.
Okay, we'll just share my presentation. I hope you can see it.
Yes, perfect. We see it. Thank
okay. My name is Dejan Gradisar. I'm coming from Jožef Stefan Institute, Department of Systems of Control from Ljubljana, capital of Slovenia. So we are working as a department. We are working on various types of systems in the field of clean energy, smart factories, clean environment, supporting their integration, implementation, providing control for them. We are also part of EU WASTELESS project where we want to develop and provide a methodology and a tool set to assess food waste at households more automatically, as it is allowed by current available methods. This is just one of the tools that are being developed between WASTELESS project. Okay, as indicated by the title of my talk, we focus on the problem of the food waste produced by end consumers. The size of this problem has already been extensively debated in previous talks. So as we know, the majority of the food waste occurs at the consumption level. There are various methods to measure households' food waste. Weakness of the surveys is dependence on the people's awareness and low motivation for the cooperation. And our objective within WASTELESS project is to develop a tool set and methodology to estimate different types of food waste produced at households. The methodology is being demonstrated on a representative households. So also to test the tool set and the methodology. We have developed and we are now using a tool set to support data collection. We try to make a probability sampling of the household's population and study a possibility to provide these parameters to GRC model. We would also like to make a comparison to the traditional assessed parameters coming from questionnaires and interviews. So the concept of our hardware toolset is depicted with the figure shown on the screen. We have a scale with sensors integrated, which provide measurements. There are 4 load cells, which converts force into the electrical signals, which is then converted to digital signal and processed by microcontroller. This is then can be then connected to the mobile app, which we have developed for this purpose, and the app categorizes the food waste, and later all data sends to our database, where we can use it for further analysis. In the frame of the project, the concept of the tools set has been implemented within as I said, in a scale. There were produced in our workshop 45 scales, which will be then used for simultaneous use with different households. So here are some screens from there. The scale is accompanied with the application that was prepared for this purpose, and the use of this is shown with this workflow. So the scale has to be, the application has to be first connected with the scale. Then the user places the plate on the scale, phone on the stand. Later he would put waste on the plate and categorize and add photo. At the end, the user sends the data by just simply pressing the button to our database, and the process is repeated until he threw away all the waste he would have. As mentioned, the user has to categorize the food waste. Currently, the categorization shown with those tables is implemented. This was defined based on the literature review and discussion with the member of WASTELESS project members, but can easily be adapted. Also, the application which was developed can be easily translated to any local language, which in an environment where the application would be used. So just to see the demonstration of how the tool should be used by the user. So on the scale, he would put a plate. He would add the waste. Use the phone with an application. By pressing the button, the application would open, connect to the scale. He would be asked, he would get information from the previous measurements he had provided. So he has ability to see what was his entries before. He can also delete and repeat the measurements if needed. When he plays the waste, he gets the measurement of the weight. And on the last screen, he has the ability, he has to show with the picture what the disposed waste is going on here. He also needs to categorize as defined with the table shown before. So when he provides at least photo and one category, he is able to send those data to the database. He also can define if the food is if the waste is avoidable or not, was it processed or raw, but also some other options can be implemented. So by pressing send button, he will repeat the procedure. Okay. So for the end, I would show you one presentation on YouTube. And I hope you can see it and hear it.
Dejan, I think we see it, but we don't hear the sound.
Please.
Yeah,
I didn't hear you.
We don't hear the sound of the video. We just see the images.
Okay, I will send you the link. So just a second. I can send you the link to the chat. Maybe you can see it later on. But the sharing has stopped now. Okay. In the video, the way of how to use the scale is presented, and also how those data can be later used for analysis. So that's all from my side.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So with that final presentation, we conclude the session. And right now it's time to start the round table. We have around 15 to 20 minutes for the round table. So maybe I think we can ask, or we can start by asking some of the questions that we have been collecting in the chat. You can keep writing down your questions in the chat while the speakers answer the questions. And if not, of course, I also have several questions for the speakers. But let's just start for the first question that we had in the chat. This question is for Ainhoa. And the question is about how much data has been gathered and especially from which actors has been gathered. And if you have seen differences in gathering the data, if, for example, if for one actor is easier than for the other one, or if you have had specific problems with some of the actors.
Okay. We have covered three value chains in the three pilots. In Spain, information about the food supply chain related to prepared salads. In Denmark, about meat, because we are changing the habits into plant-based diet. And in the case of Slovakia, information about bread. We have covered the whole value chain in the three pilots, from primary production to households. So we have addressed the problem using these the tools I explained before, the three tools that we have developed for every kind of pilot of stakeholders, because we detected that we needed to adapt these tools depending on the stakeholders. In the case of the supply chain, producers and logistics, for example, they have more data collected automatically in their own systems, so it is more easier to collect data from them. But in the case of HoReCa sector or consumers, they needed some adaptation of the tools to simplify the process when you are working with end consumers. Indeed, we combine also diaries with the food app, for example, in case of consumers, and the information was digitalized by responsible in the municipalities, for example. So we have been combining different approaches depending on the stakeholders. We have collected information at the beginning of the project to evaluate the baseline, the starting point of the three pilots in terms of food waste generation. And we have also collected after the end of the implementation of the different prevention actions. It has been very hard work just to collect this data, especially at the beginning, because we had to integrate a lot of systems and we had to adapt the solutions to their needs. We created templates, we create channels of communication with the stakeholders, and we have one person dedicated to collect data from the stakeholders. At the end of the project, it was more fluent, but it's quite complex, the process. And the amount of data, a lot of data, because we have monitored the last 2 years. In some cases, indeed, we define in the co-creation process of the definition of the KPIs, we define more than 100 KPIs. At the end, we create a short list of 70 KPIs, and it has been very complicated to collect information for all of them. But we focus mainly on the quantification of food waste and information related to quantify the environmental impact, but also social, the impact of the social actions, and also economical impact, a lot of data.
Okay. Thank you very much. There is another question also for Ainhoa, but also for Andra, and is about their demand and supply protections. So if you can just give us a short comment about the accuracy of the models that you are using, at least if you are happy with them or not, or there is a huge gap still to be closed. So feel free. Andra, maybe if you want to jump first in the conversation to give a little bit the floor to everyone.
Yeah, so these predictions probably refer to data that is from like the producers and don't focus on the consumers. So so far, the accuracy has been tested by our Slovenian colleagues from ITC, and the predictions were quite close to the reality. So they tested it in their short food supply chain, where they also know the real quantities. So this is the experience for them, where it's taken from supply and demand. When it's from citizens, and that's why we actually have also the manual input with automated tools, so smart weights and so on. That's where the challenge is in actually gathering significant data. And what we are now considering as we're piloting is actually to use artificial intelligence modeling for data, so that we can create, let's call artificial data, respecting the patterns, so that we have more data where we don't have, for example, for large populations. So based on significant sampling methodologies with artificial intelligence to generate data, so to narrow a little bit this demand and supply estimations.
Thank you very much, Andra. Ainhoa, something else to add?
Yes, in our case, we have also used artificial intelligence models. Indeed, we have developed 6 forecasting models, depending on the actors and the information collected. Our accuracy is from 80% to 95%, and it's key the amount of data collected. If you have more data, the models can be trained better, and the accuracy of the models is better. Indeed, the best accuracy has obtained in the pilot with more data.
Thank you very much, Ainhoa. And following with that approach of models accuracy and so on, I have a question for Valeria. when you are presenting all the model in food loss and food waste, and you are talking about the ratios that you are using and that you are getting mainly from scientific literature and so on. And then also you showed these estimates at country level versus the model prediction. So the question in here is, are you validating, or how are you validating the data that is being provided by the countries themselves, or even how do you validate the food loss or food waste ratios that you are using in the model, or at least how you are working with all these validating accuracy and so on of the models?
Thank you, Joan. So the comparison that I showed was a first attempt at least I would be a bit, let's say using the word validation maybe is a bit tricky, because we know that both the amounts that we are estimated for our approach have their limits, because of course the challenges that come with creating a complete food system model that is representative for all EU countries, so taking into account all the specific, let's say, how all the countries are different in terms of production and consumption patterns. And then we know also that the estimates reported by the member states, as this exercise has just started, have their limitations because of the sampling procedures, of the fact that there are different approaches that are being used to collect this information, and all of them have their limitations. And also, I think what is quite challenging is the distinction at the manufacturing stage and at the primary production stage, the distinction between waste and byproducts that is not so clear-cut in the legislation. So there is a bit the risk that certain countries have taken a certain approach to distinguish between waste and byproducts, and other countries have taken a different approach. So what we've done here with comparing what we have estimated with what is out there is a first attempt at seeing in a way how far are we from reality, but also in one way also if the estimated amounts are consistent with production and consumption patterns. That is something that is in a way guaranteed by our model, because our starting point are production statistics and trade statistics. So if the amounts reported by member states are by some orders of magnitude different from our amounts, this can signal the fact that potentially there is an error because it is not consistent with their production statistics. So I hope this answered your question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Valeria. I have a question both for Wouter and Dijan. And when we are talking about these new technologies and new innovations, so on one side, I think they have a huge potential on facilitating the measurements, but on the contrary, it creates, or I don't know, I would like to see your opinion on how do you see these technologies applied in the real world, let's say medium to long term, because for example, with the UAV or the multispectral cameras, who do you think should apply this technology? Should be the farmer, should be external consultancies, should be a process run by at national level, focusing on these wider national statistics, this kind of thought on these technologies. And a little bit the same for you, Dejan, when we were talking about this innovative scale for measuring food waste, how do you see that happening? Maybe just piloting in several case studies to have an average, or do you really think this could be applied at a wider scale at household level, or just your thoughts on how these technologies, once are working, should be really implemented in the real world?
Okay, thank you. Shall I start? Okay. So it's a good question, because we should keep in mind always that a lot of these technologies that we are proposing is quite novel. And it's novel in the sense that it has been around less than 10 years as sort of the drones. They still need to develop, they still need to get actually sort of a structure at all levels, not just in food waste, it's also in agriculture. How can we get drone technology in? There's still a lot of questions that are not clear there. So satellite data, for instance, that can be automated to a large extent. So this could be, it could be managed by governments relatively easily. If you look at those more detailed measurements, how can we apply them? Well, it's not so difficult in a way, technically, but somebody needs to do it and somebody needs to pay for it. And that's going to be the big challenge. We can put cameras on tractors. That's not a big cost, but then still somebody, we'll need a lot of cameras and we'll need a lot of, computers to process all the data. So this is for me something that's not clear yet, and it's a main challenge. And I don't think this is something we can expect farmers to do. So if we want to control them, we need to pay for this thing as well. So it has to be government or coming from other resources. And yes, so we're also including in the follow project, we're also including something, how can we scale this up? Because of course you cannot measure on every farm, you cannot measure on everywhere. So you should pick up so you can get a reliable sampling over an area. And this should also be included. So this should reduce the cost, but still it's going to be a bit of a cost that relates to that. On the other hand, if you are measuring, who's now measuring the food loss? Those people who are now measuring food loss could be measuring food loss with more technology, and that would be a more efficient way of doing so. So I think this goes to larger discussion as well of like who's need to measure food loss and who needs to pay for that.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Okay, so to answer my part, at the moment we are doing some tests with households here in Slovenia with smaller group of them, mainly in order to get their feedbacks, so user feedbacks, if it's possible still to improve some things in case of the application mostly, as that is the most interaction with the user, and I think the data can be improved the best with good application. We are already planning additional demonstration more than it was estimated in the beginning of the project. So we plan to use this method in a bigger scale also first here in Slovenia, but also with project partners from Portugal, Estonia, and Hungary. Maybe to mention, as I said in the introduction, we are more developers, system integrators, not from the field of food waste and similar field, but together with partners, I think we have a good possibilities that this tool can be successfully implemented in different studies.
Thank you very much, Dijan, for your answer. I think there is one last question in the chat, and I think it's worth asking it, and I think we will close with that question. This is a question for Valeria, and the question is if there is a consideration from the JRC to develop an harmonized food waste categorization, along with a common measurement methodology, to have a higher degree of disaggregation of food waste generated at member state level. For example, in fruits, and inside the fruits, for example, bananas, apples, oranges, and so on. If you think this is reasonable to do, and if you are planning to do that.
Thank you. I'm not sure I tried to understand, to reply in the chat. I'm not sure I fully understand what you mean by developing a harmonized food waste categorization. I don't know, Andrea, if you would like to clarify that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I mean for food categorization, more than food waste categorization. What I mean is if there is intention or will or a thought from your part to have let's say, a common categorization that may be used by everyone to address which are the foods that are usually waste at the European level. Because I see that in your system there are, for example, the reference to vegetables, eggs, meat, dairy products. If there is intention to better address these food categories in a higher level. So, for example, to disaggregate vegetables with eggplants, as I said in the example, zucchini, or other kind of products which may better identify which are the food waste produced at the EU level. I don't know if it's much clearer now.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I think the way I can answer this is that there are two different things. One is what the Commission is doing in terms of what the Commission is asking member states, what kind of information the Commission is asking member states to provide. And on the other hand, there is what we are doing in our research activities by developing, for instance, this model. And in terms of the model itself, at the moment, we are modeling the food system at the product level, although results are presented at the aggregated level of the food category. But we do already model it product by product whenever this is possible, in terms of whenever there is this level of disaggregation in the production and trade statistics. So in the documentation of the model that is fully available online, you can see for each food category the list of products which are included with their product code in the production statistics, for instance, from FAO or from Prodcom statistics and in the trade statistics. So we have this information. It's just that we are not displaying the results at the product level yet, but at the category level. And this is certainly something that it would be nice to do in the future, to give more information on, to identify which are the hotspots of waste generation at product level.
Thank you very much, Valeria, for the answer. I don't think there is any more questions, and more or less we're just on time to wrap up and close the sessions. So first of all, I really want to thank all the speakers for the presentations that they have done. I think it has been super interesting this first day. And I also want to thank all the participants in this webinar. For most part of the webinar, we have been between 80 to 100 people, which I think is a huge success for a session like that one. So thank you very much to all of you for being here. And tomorrow we will have the second part of the webinar. And I think that's all from my side. Thank you very much. I don't know if Luminita, Sofia, or Anna wants to have a final word.
No, just to thank you all for participating, to the speakers for the very interesting talks, and see you all tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Then.
Thank you very much.